Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into today's episode, I want to talk about NHash Cloud Mining. They are a really cool company that makes cryptocurrency mining an easy, smart, and rewarding experience for everybody. I've started using these guys. It's an absolute treat. Very easy to use. Highly recommend. NHash has emerged onto the scene as one of the top tier crypto mining platforms. They have years of experience, offer tons of computing power so you can mine Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and more. You name it, they offer it. NHash offers some of the most affordable pricing in the business, ensuring users can begin mining without a large capital outlay. For as low as $70, you can start dancing and romancing. You can start mining today with zero maintenance fees and returns upwards of $5,000. Share your referral code with friends and family to multiply your gains and expand your network. NHash is currently running a promotion that gets you a $30 off coupon and a $5 bonus for joining. It's literally the best way to join the crypto mining revolution. There is no better way. To take advantage of this, head on over to nhash.io. That is nhash.io, NHASH.io. Highly recommend giving them a try. Now, boys and girls, let's get on to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is a Canadian digital artist and author that's currently helping other writers and artists move their work to the blockchain. He founded Lost Books, an indie blockchain publisher located in Quebec, Canada. This gentleman released his first book in 2020 called The Lost Direction, which is the first of the Lost Books of Quatrius series. I'm very pleased to welcome to the Crypto News Podcast, Tim Boucher. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Very pumped to have you on. Always good to have Canadians on. I believe you are Canadian number 2 and the first French Canadian on the pod. Bonjour. How are you?
Bonjour. I'm also secretly an American.
I saw that when I was doing a little research. You have some lineage in California, right?
Well, I lived there a little while in California, but I grew up on the East Coast and the Northeast. I was born in Massachusetts. My family, going back several generations, is French Canadian. I came up here about 10 years ago and ended up staying, and I'm very happy with that choice.
Nice. I assume very happy with that choice, minus the last, 12 months, 13 months kind of thing with Canada and its COVID.
Yeah, it's been a challenging time period for sure for everybody, no matter where you are, I think.
It certainly has. So you've done something really interesting, and when Crypto News first had the opportunity to speak with you on this podcast, it was so unique because it's such a niche. You took a book that was published, the traditional paper publishing route, which I'm assuming is an absolute shit show and a bit of a nightmare, which we will get into shortly. But you took that book and you published it on the blockchain and you released it in the form of an NFT. It's done very well since. You've also published some of your art on the blockchain, and you founded a company called Lost Books, which is an indie blockchain publisher, and you are helping other authors, mostly smaller authors, get their books and their art in the form of blockchain onto NFTs, which again is just incredible. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. But before we do, tell me how you got into the crypto space.
Sure. Well, I had been working for conventional web platforms for about, 5 years or so. And then I started to transition last year into working more for blockchain companies and doing kind of parallel work and transitioning what I had learned at conventional platforms and figuring out how can that technology work in this new space with all of these new opportunities. So I've had a really good luxury to learn and earn at the same time, just to kind of really explore and find out what's out there and what I can make work for myself for now, and then seeing what I can share from those learnings with other people.
That's a great line. I can learn and earn.
It's a lucky position to be in for sure.
That's an author line right there. I can tell you got a writing background. That's I love that. I'm going to snag that one myself.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Tell me about the book. Now, the book is called The Lost Direction, and it is a collection of the Quatrian lore inspired by the little-known writings of one Edward Allen Oxford, who is a World War I merchant marine. And I will let you finish that sentence off, and you can tell us about the mysterious tropical island following a U-boat attack off the coast of Antarctica. Incredibly interesting. Tell us a little bit about the book, but don't give it all away, because I'd love for our listeners to go buy it too.
Sure. So the book is called The Lost Direction. And like you said, it's a collection of stories and lore that are from a lost civilization that is not very well known that was called Quatria. So there's a lot of lore in this book, actually. And I've taken to calling it lore core because it's like, it's a book for people that really like to deep dive into world building or into kind of like complex stories that aren't necessarily just one story. Like if you know the book, The Arabian Nights, it's kind of like a frame story where as you go, you start to learn the story of each character and of each place and so on.
It's got the metaverse feel to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the big theme that I'm exploring in all of this. What I'm referring to as hyper reality. There's a really interesting Wikipedia page that I just discovered about this topic, and I was excited because it's like this describes exactly what I'm doing. And the short version of that is hyper reality is sort of the state that you get into when it becomes hard to tell where the fact and the fiction start and stop. And I think this is something that we've seen in kind of like a negative way in the world of fake news, where it's politically driven or it's trying to get people to take some kind of action, whether for good or for bad. But I've tried to kind of like take those ideas and just as a pure storytelling technique and apply them in hopefully a more positive context to exploring this kind of alternate reality, parallel reality world where, as you said, one of the means that this story has come to light is via some letters that were discovered in an attic. And these are the letters of Edward Allen Oxford, who, as you said, was a merchant marine in World War I, who supposedly, according to the story, his ship was torpedoed off the coast of Antarctica. Everyone aboard was lost except for him, and he was found a couple of years later, and he claimed that he had survived on this tropical island. He went into a long convalescence because people doubted his sanity. And during that time period, he wrote these letters, which were stored in this attic that eventually came to my hands, and from which I'm recompiling the legends of this land and these people. So that's the book in a nutshell. There's the book itself, but then there's kind of all of the meta context and the culture around it that has sort of driven it too.
The pieces of the puzzle. I love that. And that's
it's very much to be considered as a puzzle.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I've started diving in, and I'm very excited to finish off. Again, the whole publishing as an NFT and going the NFT route. Now, explain this to me as if I am a new writer that is just finished writing my couple 100,000 words. I'm about to fire off a book, publish a book, and I'm weighing the pros and cons of going the traditional, physical act of publishing a book versus going a more technological route and using the NFT boom and piggybacking off of the NFT boom. What are the pros and cons of each way, and what would your biggest tidbits of advice be to someone just starting out in this space?
Well, I think there's two things one, it doesn't necessarily need to be an either or proposition. This feeds into number two, which is it's good when there are new technologies to start learning and experimenting early. And because if you do that as a creator, as someone who's really invested in the outcomes of the technologies, you can really help to shape the directions that they will take just by the act of participating and sharing what you've got. So that's kind of the spirit that I'm taking it in. As you said, I published it originally last year, at the beginning of last year, as a print volume. And I wouldn't say that's quite a traditional publishing path, because I still did it as like a print on demand publishing through a company called Lulu.com for the print books. And I did ebooks through another company called Publish Drive. That is kind of like a distribution aggregator that you can manage all of this stuff in one place. So even that is already not necessarily the conventional path for writers. I think the conventional path is probably more like, you get a literary agent, you get a book deal, you do all this stuff. And I think that's fine and that's great if you can get that to work. I think there's like a vanishingly small fraction of writers who can succeed anymore in that kind of conventional path. And maybe even before it was already a low amount. But I think just because like all the self-publishing tools are there, all of the blogs, the social media, everything, there's so many books, so much information that it's hard to break through the noise by taking a more conventional publishing path, which is why I chose the print on demand, the self-publishing path in the first place. Also because if you're looking for an agent or you're looking for a book deal, from what I understand, it seems like it's very advantageous to have a large built-in social media following already. And if you have that, great. But if you don't have that, you're kind of in a catch-22 of how do you get the deal without already having the audience, So that's why I went the self-publishing route. It was an interesting process, and I wouldn't say that it's easy. I would say that the easy part is writing the book. The hard part is then you've built this world, or you've built this thing, and how do you share it with people, and how do you get other people to be invested? That becomes the really hard part. And for me, I released the book kind of just before COVID really changed everything. People stopped going into their offices, but I had sent out, dozens of review copies of the book, all over different countries. And, I wasn't getting any responses because people stopped going to their office. So, true to the name of my publishing company, my books became lost books. And it's not the only story that I have like that about books of mine getting lost. But as a result of that, I kind of like really experiment a lot with, like I said, all this like meta contextual storytelling, all of the stuff that kind of goes around the book to build up the excitement and to build an audience. And at the end of last year, I started to experiment with NFTs. I started on Rarible. And the first drawing actually I ever sold was like a drawing for, at the time, $14 in Ethereum.
Which is now worth 100.
Yeah, which is now worth probably 10 times what it was originally. And that's like in just September. And that original art that I sold was from the Quatria metaverse, and ties into all of this. But at the time I was like, well, $14, that's interesting, but that's not anything that I can stop my regular job.
For sure.
So I did a few more. I sold a couple of other things for really low prices. And then I kind of waited until maybe February of this year. And suddenly it really started to take off in the middle of February. I got really involved in kind of the crypto art, NFT space on Twitter. I think Twitter is like really the number one place to be involved in NFTs, either as a creator, as a buyer, or just as a fan, someone who's interested.
Anything crypto related, that is the place to be. Tim, before you keep going, one quick question. You brought up a great point in regards to releasing a product, and in this case, for you or for authors, it would be a new book.
Yeah.
What is the way to go? Do you recommend building a community before launching that book, or launch the book, then build the community? Obviously, finding the community first is easier, but are there ways around that?
I think you just have to do it however you can do it, because you can't always wait for the ideal perfect circumstances,
right,
to rise. And that includes either the audience, the distribution channels, the technology, whatever. Like, you just have to start wherever is easiest for you to start and keep going. I think in terms of the way that the creative process works, it kind of can be easier to start developing an audience just by sharing your creative process. You don't need to necessarily start with the perfect finished product. You can start with all of the bits and pieces, show people, talk about it, and just share your excitement. And I think people always respect that, and they always kind of respond in kind when you do that. So I think that's a great way to go. But if you find another path that works for you, I think, try that.
No, tomato, to each their own. On the NFT route, so you spoke about Rarible, which is one of the biggest marketplaces and exchanges in the world, one of the most famous ones, one of the biggest ones. Step one as an author would probably be setting up that hot wallet to make sure you have some ETH or some Binance coin or whatever, maybe Polkadot, whatever the case may be, but you definitely need something that allows you to onboard that as an NFT. You have to pay the minting fee, so on and so forth. Can you walk our listeners through the full-on process from choosing that hot wallet all the way to actually selling that first NFT?
Absolutely. One thing I want to point out before I launch into that, though, is that there are kind of two big platforms. There's Rarible and there's OpenSea. And both of those right now really are centered on Ethereum. So I know there are plans to use some other blockchains like Matic, Polygon, and Tezos and Flow on OpenSea. But for now, the vast majority of all of the NFT minting platforms run on Ethereum. There's one on Tezos that's open called Hic et Nunc. And there is, you can use Matic on Cargo. But anyway, so I just wanted to put that out there because each one is a little bit different. And OpenSea, they have a different setup process than Rarible. And you pay once to initialize your account. And then after that, you mint for free. And actually, technically, you're only minting when an item is sold or transferred. So it's like a reduced usage of energy and all of that, et cetera. But I'll walk you through like kind of the step-by-step process for Rarible because that's where I did my book,
Lovely.
The Lost Direction. Yeah. And I think it's a little bit more common right now, their fee structure that Rarible uses, even though I do most of my other stuff on OpenSea because it's cheaper for me. But Rarible is good because it allows multiple editions of something. So when you have an NFT, you can either sell an individual unit, like if it's a unique digital art piece, for example. This is often the way people go. They'll sell just one copy of it. There's one owner, that's it. And you can also sell an edition where basically you define the number of units. So in my case, I set up 100 for the book. But I'll come back to that in a second. So the first thing that I would do as a new user who wants to sell a book on Rarible would be to set up probably a Coinbase account. I think they're one of the easier ones to get onboarded. If you're completely brand new to crypto and you don't understand anything, I think it's probably the best place to start. Maybe other people have other opinions on that, but that's what I found. So on Coinbase, what you're going to do is you're going to have to complete the KYC, the Know Your Customer stuff, where you're going to have to fill out your basic information. You're going to have to link a bank account. And then you are going to use that bank account to buy a certain quantity of Ethereum. Now, the value of Ethereum goes up and down based on the market, and also the price of transactions using Ethereum goes up and down based on a kind of almost separate market using another valuation called GUI. And that's really confusing as a new user. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with crypto is that everything is so complicated to set up and explain just to get started. It gets frustrating. Once you've got a Coinbase set up, I would probably try to deposit maybe between $100 and $200 US into that account, and then or you rather use that to purchase Ethereum for an equivalent amount. And then you're going to have that Ethereum. It lives in your Coinbase wallet. And then you're going to need basically a way to send that Ethereum to Rarible. And the way that I do that is through a Web3 wallet. Web3 is like the new kind of term for distributed blockchain applications and stuff. So you'll set up a Web3 wallet. There's a bunch of different ones, but I use MetaMask, and that's, again, one of just the more popular ones. And that's part of why I use it, because it's kind of easier to find support if you run into an issue from other people, because there's just a lot of users. It's really well accepted at different websites that use Web3 wallets. So
Tim, 1 second. Folks just jumping in here. MetaMask, and again, no free ads, but everyone, at Crypto News, everyone in the world loves MetaMask. But again, no free ads. MetaMask, you guys are awesome. MetaMask is a Google Chrome web browser add-on that you put, it goes beside. Some of you may have the, 1Password up there. Some of you may have Honey or Lolly or Notion or whatever the case may be. It is an orange fox that lives on your Chrome browser, and it connects to any application, any website or platform that allows you to connect any ERC20 tokens, which is the Ethereum blockchain. So again, it's the orange Fox, and you'll see it on anyone's browser during any type of screen sharing or anything like that. Tim, back to you.
Yeah, you see this on YouTube all the time for sure. I also use it in Firefox, and it works great in Firefox. And it's confusing because the logo of Firefox is also orange fox, so it's a little bit confusing. But right, so you have Coinbase is where you've stored your initial amount of Ethereum. For this example, MetaMask is going to be basically the wallet that lives on your browser. And every time you go to a kind of a crypto compatible website, it's going to interact with your MetaMask wallet. And every time there's an interaction, you can kind of say like yes or no, and if it will show you like if there's a fee or whatever. So you're going to take your Ethereum from Coinbase and you're going to send it into your MetaMask wallet. And the best way to learn how to do that is just watch a couple of YouTube videos. It's not super complicated, but it's good to be careful and to go slowly and make sure that you're doing the right thing, because there's a weird kind of design issue with crypto that if you send money to an invalid or just the wrong type of wallet address, you could lose it. So be careful, go slow, ask people for help, check out YouTube videos. And then once you've got your money in your MetaMask wallet, now you're able to go to websites like Rarible or to OpenSea. You can now interact with their blockchains. And when you interact with blockchains in the form of writing new records or changing a record, you have to pay to interact with that because of the distributed nature of the system. There's a bunch of different computers that are like running calculations. Together, they make an agreement about what has happened, like has reality changed for all of the nodes? So they kind of come to an agreement, and in order to fuel that agreement process, this is where you pay the gas fee or the transaction fee on Ethereum. So when you go to Rarible, you will be prompted to link your MetaMask wallet. And then I think you can set up a profile sort of like shortly after that. It's been a few months since I set up Rarible, but it's a pretty standard just set up a profile thing. When you're ready and you have something that you want to publish, you go through the process called minting. And like I said, on Rarible, normally you're paying when you mint an NFT. Minting just means that you're creating a record on the blockchain, and then all of these computers are agreeing to that record. So we have to pause here for a second because ebook publishing is still not very well supported within the world of NFTs. They've grown so much in a really short period of time, just a few months, that I think platforms are struggling to keep up with all of the different and not always necessarily compatible user demands and priorities that people want to use their system for. So right now there is kind of a lack of platforms which support just conventional ebook formats. Like for me, the conventional ebook formats would be EPUB, Mobi, which is the Kindle format, and then PDF. So I think the Tezos platform, Hicket, Nunc, they support PDFs. And I've also been told that another platform called Mintable supports PDFs. But I kind of chose a workaround. And this is going to make it sound complicated, but for me, it was ultimately easier to run because I was already selling some ebooks on a website called Gumroad.com, where Gumroad is like a conventional digital file marketplace. So I have my ebooks up there. I put my EPUB, my Mobi, my PDF. I have just like a normal product sale page on Gumroad, and it's a really great website. It's cool because you can take a URL of a product and you can drop it into a Medium post, and it populates as a shopping cart right in there, just for regular credit card stuff. But so what I did was I used my Gumroad product page kind of as like the file host for all of the ebook files. And then I created an NFT on Rarible that references the Gumroad. And the way that it does that is when you make NFTs, usually you're able to make unlockable content. So this is content that only the buyer of the NFT can have access to. The regular people who have not purchased it are not going to be able to see that content. So what happens when you buy the NFT using the method that I did on Rarible is that after you buy it, you're able to see the unlockable content. The unlockable content for me is a coupon code for my Gumroad storefront. So basically, I'm still managing all of my ebook files in one place. I'm just sending you, once you've made the purchase of the NFT, over to the Gumroad thing with 100% off coupon to download it. And so also I've done on top of that, for the first 100 people who buy the original set, I'm offering a free print version that I can ship almost anywhere in the world based on where my printer can ship. And that's just like an add-on thing that I'm doing to generate interest and excitement. You don't necessarily have to do that. And right now, there's not a simple pathway that I've found where I could get the shipping address for an NFT buyer right off Rarible. That's not really an option right now. That might be something that people could build kind of as an add-on down the road, or maybe as like a more customized ebook NFT marketplace. That kind of thing might make sense. But right now, and this is why I said, like, you can't wait for the perfect conditions, and it's good and beneficial to start early with technologies. Yeah. And just to try to make an experiment, to do your best with what's available, with the tools that are available, see how it works, and then don't just stop and then try to iterate on it. Like say, like, is there part of this workflow that I can improve for myself so I don't have to always be getting people's addresses by email? Or, is there an improvement that I can make on the product side where either it's, the shopping cart or it's the actual ebook product itself? Like, always try to take your feedback and go and iterate on it. This is something I've really taken from like the agile development philosophy where, you're always kind of trying to continuously improve as you go. And it's something that I think, like you said, it's a way to build audiences too, because as you get feedback from people about what's working or what's not working or what they like or what could be improved, like you kind of are strengthening your ties with the community of people that support you and your work. So it's a really compatible way to put out creative stuff, I think.
I really appreciate you going into that and teaching us about the process. I know, folks, you're probably thinking, wow, what a nightmare, but it's one of those things where it's like anything else in life. You got to get your reps in. When you first get into the crypto space, it's very daunting. It's scary. The barrier to entry and the walls, the walls are tall and it's daunting. But once you do it a couple times, you're dancing.
I did publish onto medium.com an article. I think if you just go to Medium, or if you go to Google and you type like NFT book publishing how to, something like that, you'll find my article under Tim Boucher. It's just my Medium profile, and it has these steps and it has like links of all these different websites and stuff to check out. But I agree that it's really daunting to get started, and it sounds scary, and it is a little scary because, like I said, like if you send money to the wrong address, your money goes away,
Exactly.
So like you just have to learn, and you have to accept that, like, okay, maybe you might mess up a couple of times. You might overpay a transaction fee by trying to make something when gas is high, but it's part of the learning process, and it's kind of an investment in your ability to work with technology that's beneficial in a way, both for you and for other people. So it's like, it takes time and it takes energy to do it, but I think it's worth it because it's brand new and it's wide open. I've only found, I want to say, after weeks of searching, I've only found maybe 5 other people or maybe even less who have put out NFTs as a book at all. So that's wild. Like this is a completely open space, and I haven't seen any big conventional publishers doing it yet. There are plenty of other kind of major brands that are experimenting with NFTs, but I haven't seen any of those in the conventional publishing space, which tells me that, okay, maybe my system can be improved that I'm working with today, but it tells me that there's a big potential advantage for me as someone who's early in this space, like I said, to shape the conversation and shape the future of the technology, and maybe even work with, other people or work with other companies as they get understanding and awareness of the possibilities. That's exciting for me too.
100%. It is a bit of a gamble. And speaking of gambling, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at CoinPoker, who created the world's premier crypto poker platform. They also have a sports book, which is absolutely incredible. You guys on the show have heard me talk about CoinPoker many times. They are one of our best sponsors, and we love them to death. CoinPoker is absolutely incredible. The mobile app is probably my favorite part. Whenever I'm on the go, I whip out my phone, play a couple hands of Texas, although I'm not playing too much poker nowadays, but I still love the sports betting. It's an absolute treat. Grab some CHP, which is the currency of the CoinPoker economy. They also feature instant and secure transactions using USDT, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and of course CHP tokens. Another one of my favorite parts is no KYC, 5 minutes on board, you're up, you're dancing, and you get access to those huge promotions as they give away thousands in fiat every single week. Again, that is coinpoker.com, and I would love if you check them out. Tim, before we get back into it, are you a poker or sports gambler at all?
No, I'm not, because like most of my gambling I do on the creative projects, like we said,
I love it.
Okay, I'm gonna put $60 into making this NFT or whatever, and that's kind of where I put my sort of like extra time, and if I have like small amounts of money to experiment with, I'll usually put it on a creative project. And a lot of times, those end up bringing money back. Like the way that I got into doing books as NFTs in the first place was because I was doing the crypto art stuff. And in February and early March, I really saw like this was paying off. I was probably one of the small fish, who was selling stuff at that time and being relatively successful, because there were people who they were selling, unique digital artworks of all different kinds for, upwards of 10,000, 100,000, and in some cases millions, as, the top tier people like Beeple or just people who are doing really great in this. For me, I'm still making money. I sold another pixel art piece this morning. I did a pixel portrait of Steve Jobs. I've done a bunch of like pixel people portraits. And it's funny because like, unless you make those experiments and you make those little gambles, you don't know which ones are going to pay off. And sometimes it's really surprising which ones are the ones that end up being popular. So that's another reason why I like to try to like be sort of nimble or agile and iterative and really like, and always kind of like come back and check in with yourself or with other people and say like, is this working? Is there stuff that I can do better? Are there things that are happening, in a parallel field that I can kind of be inspired by? That was sort of what the genesis of the books as NFTs was just like, okay, I'm seeing this can work amazing results in digital artwork. Why can't it do it for books? And it's funny when you start like any new thing like that, you're always going to find people say like, oh, it can't work. It's impossible. It can't work. It can't work. It can't work. And if you always listen to that, you're never going to do anything. But I think the history of crypto and the future of crypto, it's always going to be trying things that other people have said, oh, that's never going to work. That's never going to work. And then, boom, some people are successful just because they tried and they kept at it, So I think that's really the approach that you have to take as an artist or a creator, because you got to keep trying. It's hard to win, but if you keep doing it, you're eventually going to,
100%. On the writing side, as someone who also enjoys to write, I'm definitely not a good writer, but I do love it. Me personally, and this isn't a me only thing, this is the masses. It's very difficult to actually put pen to paper, or in our case, fingers to keyboard, if you will, and really get that output, banging and getting that ball rolling. Do you have any tips for one of you writers and how to actually ramp up that creative output?
For me, it's like you said, it's a really personal process. And for me, I've always just been someone who's really productive. But the way that I stay productive is by staying productive. I have downtime and I try to use it, and I try to use it to make a new thing and to experiment with something and to put it out there and test. And I found that like the more momentum you build, the easier it is to maintain that momentum. And as your momentum is good and strong, like your muscles are getting stronger, you're exercising your faculties of creating or polishing or improving something. So for me, the thing is just like always be creating, just always be doing something. If it's for 30 minutes a day, if it's for, whatever you can spare, sometimes whatever you can't spare, too. And just being dedicated and being committed to it. And I think like, even if you don't succeed on the crypto side, I think there's so much success and satisfaction just by the sheer act of trying and to be always creating stuff, that those rewards are good too. You know, they're maybe better in a lot of cases. So
it's like the creative version of the sales always be closing. It's still ABC.
Yeah, totally.
Still ABC. Tim, this has been awesome. Couple rapid fire questions before we wrap up here. And I know you have a baby that you have to tend to who's currently on the oh so precious nap time, which that's hilarious. That's me probably, I don't know, 5, 10, maybe 15 years down the road. That's a story for another day. But some rapid fire questions here. When and if will Bitcoin hit 100K?
I'm not sure. I thought it was going to be this year, but now it's just kind of hovering. So I want to say maybe next year or the year after, but I don't know. I feel like it's very likely, or maybe more likely to me at this point with the way that things are looking, that Ethereum will cross Bitcoin in value. But it's really hard to predict these things because it's just such a volatile market and the industry and the changing technologies, you know, every day. But that's more my prediction, is that Ethereum is going to cross Bitcoin, and then maybe later we're going to be like, you know, what's Bitcoin?
The flippening is going to scare a lot of Bitcoin maxis. I don't know if the flippening is going to happen.
I don't know either.
Just because the whole finite value. Mm-hmm. But next question for you I have is, who is your favorite author? It's probably a tough question.
It's really hard. I mean, it changes so much too based on your age and what you need in your sort of creative life, you know, like, or your fantasy, your imaginary life. Of course, like Tolkien has always been a huge influence on me. And when I was writing this book, I was going back through all of the fantasy authors and books of my youth that I really loved. And you know, like C.S. Lewis and the Wind in the Willows and all those kind of like the classic books. In the Wizard of Earthsea, I think probably I would have to say like Ursula K. Le Guin is probably my favorite all-time writer. If I had to pick one, I just think like her writing is so lyrical all the time, and she's always bringing the goods. You know, like you're always getting there. As the reader, she never leaves you hanging. So I think probably her.
Amazing. And last question, as you are from Quebec, are you a Montreal Canadiens fan?
You know, again, I think sports and gambling for me are just two things I never got into because like I'm just always doing my own stuff. So like when I have downtime, I'm kind of employing it in other fashions usually. And I never got the bug, you know, for following sports. I don't know. Maybe it's a generational family thing too, because nobody in my family is really into it. So I kind of didn't really grow up with it either, you know?
Oh, it's true. That's one of the age old wants, is all the athletes want to be artists and all the artists want to be athletes. It's maybe not in your case, but I know like you hear rappers talking about how they want to be athletes, and you hear athletes talking about how they want to be rappers. It's just
movie stars or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, you know, you want what you can't have. Just incredibly interesting. But Tim, this was a blast. Really appreciate you coming on. I'm sure our listeners definitely learned a lot as well. Before we let you go, could you please tell our fans and listeners where they can find you on social, online, so on and so forth?
Sure. If you just go to lostbooks.ca, you'll find everything. You'll find sort of the intro background story to the books. You'll find a bunch of links for Twitter. You'll find the link to the Rarible NFT, as well as Gumroad, the ebooks, and also lulu.com, the print books. But just go to lostbooks.ca and you'll find it all right there. There's a contact form. There's even, I think it's something like the first 40 pages of the book, if you want to take a peek inside too.
Any Twitter, any socials?
Oh yeah, on Twitter it's tflat, and it's spelled TPHLAT, and that's also linked from lostbooks.ca.
Folks, you heard it there. That was Tim Boucher, lostbooks.ca, got a nice little rhyme to it as well. And he is pioneering the NFT publishing space and is helping a lot of people along the way. Tim, had a blast speaking to you today. We'll definitely have you on.
Yeah, thanks, me too.
In, another 6, 9 to 12 months. Cool. I'm sure you will be an absolute vet in the space by then, but thanks for coming on. Had a blast speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Folks, this was the CryptoNews.com podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode with Tim Boucher. Mean the world if you could subscribe. We have a bunch of incredible guests coming out, and as you already know, we air on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. It will most likely be that way for the foreseeable future. Thanks again for tuning in, and a quick shout out to our team, everyone on the Crypto News team, and especially Eustace, our sound guy who crushes it every single time. Love you all and hope you have an amazing rest of the day. All the best. Bye.
Bye.